Now, there are a number of different antioxidants that will also act as cofactors, and nutrients such as CoQ10, alpha-lipoic acid, vitamin C, vitamin E, riboflavin, thiamine, and some of them will also function as mitochondrial substrates such as carnitine. So it's really important that we establish what all of these particular nutrients are at for each particular patient. And if we're wanting to really make a significant influence to mitochondrial health, most of these will have a role through methylation pathways. So important to normalize, improve, and stabilize methylation pathways for our patients. And this particular slide is just looking at bioactive foods and how certain foods will help to reduce some of the dysfunction of the mitochondria and help to assist by alleviating some of the inflammation and reducing some of the reactive oxygen species that might be developed. Things that are fairly predictable like resveratrol and quercetin and curcumin and anthocyanidins, EGCG from green tea, omega-3, cholesterol, vitamin C, exercise. All of these are really, really important, and it's important to establish their prescriptions for your patients and work out the relative doses that are indicated. But if we look specifically at other relevant nutrients that are involved in the bioenergetic mitochondrial process, we can see a number of different nutrients that are indicated in a number of different roles and places within some of those cycles. But you'll see some heroes that will keep coming up again and again and again, things like selenium and vitamin E and CoQ10. So it's really important to establish that when we're having our patients that we can ensure appropriate fatty acid metabolism. You know, some of your patients may have SNP disorders that are affecting how they're assessing and establishing fatty acid metabolism. And you can provide lots of useful strategies to assist them with that, because fatty acids that aren't metabolized properly basically just create reactive oxygen species. And so then they perpetuate that mitochondrial death or the oocyte decline. Now, antioxidants, specifically for mitochondrial health, are really fascinating because they can cross the mitochondrial phospholipid bilayer and they can eliminate reactive oxygen species at the heart of the source. There is some conflicting evidence. There is a lot more research that's needed, but the summary that I'm going to give you from here on is looking at anything that I've looked at where the research is very consistently stable and it's very informative and we can rely on it and trust it. Now, the number one hero with all of this is coenzyme Q10. Now, you'll find some interesting research looking at the difference between ubiquinol and ubiquinone. And what I find really fascinating is that ubiquinol is the reduced form of coenzyme Q10, and it has the most bioavailability, particularly when we're looking at female fertility and oocyte health. It has really positive impacts on the reproductive system, because it's a very powerful antioxidant. It protects the cells from free radical oxidative damage and apoptosis. And there's an interesting mice study where it successfully reversed the damage of the cyclophosphamide treatment, which generally decreases mitochondrial RNA expression, and interfered with IVF rates and embryo development. So it's something that now needs to have a human trial, but we can see that there's lots of benefits for CoQ10 at protecting that mitochondrial RNA expression. Administration at useful doses, and clinically doses I'd be looking at is somewhere where it's a minimum of 300 milligrams per day, but I've certainly been known to go up to 900 or 1200 milligrams of CoQ10, depending on the patient. It's definitely an antioxidant. It's definitely a protective substance, and it's really useful. There was a beautiful paper in 2019 showing how it protected against ovarian damage. Now, what I find for some clinicians is that they don't see the clinical outcome that they expect. If you're not seeing the clinical outcome, assume that the product that you're prescribing may or may not be appropriate for a number of different reasons. You're wanting to get the yeast-derived Japanese in origin coenzyme Q10. And so you'll really have to scrutinize your products that you're prescribing and make sure that the product that you're choosing is of most benefit. And again, that therapeutic dose starting at 600 milligrams, I think, is the most beneficial. And I do tend to use ubiquinol over ubiquinone. I do find that gives me the best clinical outcome. Now, what's really interesting is that coenzyme Q10, the highest concentration of it is that it's found in the mitochondria, and supplementation improves female fertility by stimulating the ovarian response and slows ovarian aging. So when we're looking at CoQ10, a decrease in mitochondrial activity is associated with a CoQ10 deficiency in a number of different papers. And so that will definitely affect the granulosa cell's capacity to generate ATP. And so you'll often just find that that embryo just loses the ability to actually keep going. And so it's a common cause of chemical miscarriage. It's a common cause of early miscarriage, miscarriage at 5 weeks or even 6 weeks. But supplementation will delay the age-mediated ovarian or oocyte loss. And so it's really important to get that dose in and give a good, ideally 600 milligrams, as I've mentioned, of ubiquinol, and give it to your patients for a good 3 to 4 months before they're wanting to do anything with their oocytes. And we know that CoQ10 production is naturally occurring in the body. We know that it slows with aging. And we know that when it slows, the body can't protect the eggs from oxidative damage. So really, any female patient that presents to you in clinic, I think it's basically essential that they're all prescribed CoQ10 at a really good dose, and making sure that the quality of the product is there so that it can pass the bilipid membrane of the oocyte as well.